As the host of Neutralize the Mama Trauma podcast, I am delighted to be able to bring you this podcast. My name is Wendy Lopez, and I would like to introduce myself to you. I specialize in helping people overcome their emotional blocks through different techniques, through emotional empowerment coaching and compassionate healing light facilitation. As a mom who has experienced narcissistic trauma, I help moms eradicate self-doubt in order to regain self-confidence to elevate their status both at home and at work. In our podcast, we discuss people's struggles, triumphs, and failures. We dive deeper into self-love, self-compassion, self-acceptance, and mindful, holistic tips. In every episode, I hope that you can take a golden nugget of advice and apply it to the journey of motherhood in order to raise your level of awareness. Welcome to Neutralize the Mama Trauma podcast, where you find healing and creative mental advice from experts on past pain, narcissistic experience, and trauma. Today, I have Dr. Athans, who has dedicated her life to supporting individuals wishing to dissolve their negative, deep embedded programs and open to love, light, and truth in the universe. She is a licensed psychotherapist, marriage family therapist, metaphysics expert, author, speaker, and life coach. Dr. Athans employs her 30 plus years of highly developed intuitive skills, as well as her vast clinical knowledge and experience to gracefully open the way for people to grow and flourish. She has been heard on more than 690 radio stations, including big cities across the country, such as Chicago, Dallas, Philadelphia, Houston, Atlanta, Denver, Seattle, Sacramento, San Diego, Tampa, Vegas, and featured as an expert in the Huffington Post, Live Strong and Good Housekeeping. Dr. Athans has written over 9 books. Her most recent is Love I Am, guiding individuals along their personal journey of reconnecting with their higher self and manifesting the life that they desire. Welcome, Dr. Catherine Athans. So happy to have you here. And it's a privilege to have your presence and for the audience to have your presence and your wisdom today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be with all of you and to be with you, Wendy, and all the podcasters who are tuning in. Take heart. There's hope. There's light. Okay. Light always shines. And when there are clouds, and you know, when you're in the airplane and you go above the clouds, what do you see? Light. So light is the reality. Love is the reality. And that is a gift from the universe to each person.
That's beautiful, beautiful. So can you tell us, there could be some people or that may not see themselves in a trauma? Like what would be considered a trauma for an individual?
Well, not being able to do the normal functions in life, not being able to wash the clothes, do the dishes. If you're a mama, not paying that much attention to your child, not wanting to get out of bed in the morning, not wanting to go to sleep at night. I mean, there's so many ways you can tell, oops, I think I might be traumatized here because I'm not behaving well.
Right. And that's what I wanted to point out because it could be as simple, like you said, not wanting to do the dishes, not spending time with your child as often. And there might not be a awareness to that. And so I want to bring awareness to even those small traumas to obviously like bigger traumas. But I wanted to bring awareness to those areas of traumas where maybe they're not recognized and bring them to the light to recognition, because it would allow the mother to function at a level where she's going to feel confident.
Yes, absolutely. I think that mothers are just not allowed to have rest or peace or say, gee, I have needs too, since we turn all our attention to the baby and we forget that the baby needs a mother first. And if
Mm-hmm.
there is no mother, the baby is going to suffer. And it's hard being a mom. It's very difficult. It's a whole new way of doing things. A whole new being is involved in the family. Um, Maybe you don't have enough support. So I'm telling all the new moms or moms to be, there are many, many, many groups available through your health center or your hospital or your nurse practitioner or your doctor, and get into a group or groups of like-minded women because you need
Mm-hmm.
support. You know, we as humans are group animals. We are not isolated like the lone wolf. We have been able to
Mm-hmm.
evolve and survive through our group interactions. So it's key to do that. You know, we shrivel up and die when we're alone, and it's not good for anybody. So get that support. You'll be surprised when you're in a group how many of the women will say exactly the same thing is going on with them as with you. You have a sisterhood, you have a
Mm-hmm.
bond, you have many ideas, many creative ideas of people who want to support you, want your health, want to love you, and don't deny yourself of that.
Mm. Oh, that is so beautiful. So when you were with your studies, all that you did, was there something that made you go along this path for this specific being a licensed psychotherapist, or was it just a calling that you had to do it? Did you go through any personal experience or struggle that made you choose that path?
Well, you know, I went through a lot of struggle and a lot of awful things, but I wanted to be an archaeologist. And
Oh,
I love,
interesting.
because I love digging in the dirt, and and archaeologists have the best parties, and it's true. And you can go and get a job anywhere in the world digging, you know, a pit. If you know how to do it,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be permanently employed. You won't make a lot of money, but you'll meet a lot of interesting people and learn a lot of interesting things. So
Mm-hmm.
while I was doing that and possibly considering going to medical school, I belonged to the psychology club. And all my friends were saying, no, you belong in psychology, Catherine. You belong in psychology. I go, oh, no, I don't. No, no, no. So it was actually the university because I like going to school. And I was there for 6.25 years, 6.5. And they contacted me and said, if you don't graduate next semester, we're kicking you out. You've been here too long. You know, so, oh, so that, what did I had, oh, I could have a major in psychology because I took a lot because my friends were always saying, you need to take this, you need to do that. So I did, and I've always worked in psychology. People say, oh, you'll never find a job. I worked in psychology when I was in high school in LA City schools. I
Mm-hmm.
volunteered to tutor two, uh, then they called them, I guess, kids who had mental, you know, whose
Mm-hmm.
intelligence wasn't in the high scale.
Mm-hmm.
Retarded is what they call them. And
Mm.
I really love these kids. These kids were just fabulous, and they really hated math. So every day we'd take the math book and we'd stomp on it and we'd throw it around and we'd call it bad math book, bad math book. You know, we really did that. And then, you know, and then they said, okay, we're ready to study now.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, you know, and as I worked with them, the teachers in the school saw improvement in them
Mm-hmm.
and went and made a job for me. So I had a part-time job. They
Oh.
went and made a special job, and that was interesting. And I learned that the one gal, Sharon, I think her IQ was 56, and I used to
Hmm.
get mad at her. And one day I got really mad at her and said, "You're really bothering me. I'm going to put my head down now. I'm not talking to you anymore." So I put my head down on the desk and I waited, and I could hear little footsteps and I could hear the chalk on the board. And I waited a few more minutes. And when I looked up in perfect handwriting, not
Hmm.
printing, perfect handwriting, she wrote, "Catherine, I really do love you."
Oh.
What's mentally retarded about that? So I was able
Right.
to go to their homes, and she lived in a house where no one paid any attention to her at all. There were old cars in the yard.
Oh.
I mean, they were all family members, there was alcohol, and she was totally neglected. This
Hmm.
kid was totally neglected. And
Hmm.
for the young man, he had a terrible father who had a terrible temper,
Hmm.
and would take it out on him and hit him. So he really needed to stomp not only on the math book, but on the English book too. He
Right.
really needed to
Right.
get that anger out. And
Right.
these kids had just not been taken care of at all.
Hmm.
And when I left them, both of them were able to go back into a regular classroom
Oh,
because
wow.
they both learned study habits and the value, and
Oh, yes.
and they're so they I got a job. I got another job right away. So I had jobs in psychology even before I had a BA in psychology.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and people would go, "Oh, you'll never get a job." So I got these jobs, and I love people,
Hmm.
and I love to see people uh, uh, become more than
Right.
they were. I love to see the light going on because I taught
Mm.
school for a while, and the light goes on, and it's just it's just sends shivers through your body, like, wow,
Mm.
this
Right.
is so great.
Right. Yeah.
And so I decided I would get my master's in clinical community psychology
Mm. Okay.
because it was like a doctorate, because it was 90 anyway. It was a 3-year program. And then I decided I love science,
Mm.
so I got a doctorate in health psychology, which
Okay.
I really love.
Hmm.
And then I worked in research for a long time. But my
Mm.
spiritual teacher kept saying, they want you to open your office now. They really are waiting for you to open your office. I said, "Oh, I'm having so much fun. It's paint by number." And I got to, meet all these world known cardiologists, pulmonologists, all
Oh,
these amazing
wow. Uh-huh.
doctors and researchers. I said, "I'm having far too much fun." But then when I was going to a 49er game, they sent a big truck to rear end me, and I got laid up. The right half of my body was mostly paralyzed and kind of gimped around. And my spiritual teacher said, "See, they want you to start your office."
Oh, that's interesting because, yeah, right,
I
right.
wasn't listening. I wasn't listening. And you know what happens? They whisper softly, then they yell, and then they take the baseball bat and whack.
Oh my goodness. So how soon after that did you really open up your office?
It was very soon. She said, "Look in the ads. I bet there's an office open." I looked, and there was one in Los
Mm,
Altos, and I live in Los Altos. And I made the wish, gee, I'd like an office near a gym and close to my house.
mm.
Well, the office was like 7 minutes from my house, And the gym was like 2 minutes from the office. And I walked in, it was a great office, but it was way too expensive. Now, given this was 30 years ago, and the man who was subletting the office, anyway, it was like $850 a month, which was way too expensive for me. So I started looking at other ones, but I didn't find any. And a few days later, the man who wanted, anyway, a man who was renting in the building said, "Did you really like the office?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Can you come down here now? How long will it take you?" I said, 10 minutes. I just have to throw a jacket on. I'll be there. He said, "Because I want to rent the office and then you can sublet it from me." He said he had 2 psych interns he wanted to train.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I was gimping around and I was on disability. I didn't have a lot of money. And he said, "Well, what can you pay for the office?" And I looked up and I saw $350 a month. So I said, $350 a month, And he said, "Okay." He said, "But you have to buy all your furniture and you have to furnish it. And if my psych intern needs the office, you have to give way to them. You come last." I said, "Okay." No, I think it was 325. But anyway, so I go and I'm thinking, well, Coit, rents furniture. They sell furniture. So I'll go to Coit Furniture. So I'm driving to Coit Furniture, everything then suddenly it's like I'm in a cloud and it circles around. And when I sort of come to, I look up and it's California Furniture. And I went, "Oh, how did I get here?" I had no idea. So I went in, and this woman from my stop smoking class, I used to teach stop smoking classes. She goes, "Oh, Catherine, we've been waiting for you." I said, "Oh, really?" She said, "Oh, yes, we're having a big sale today. Go in. I'm sure there are a few pieces that you would like." I just kind of went, okay. So I went and picked out a little couch and 2 Barcelona chairs and a little table with 2 lamps and a desk and a filing cabinet. I picked out a lot of stuff. And I said, I said, "I don't have much money. How much is this going to cost me?" She said, "Well, you're in luck. We have free delivery." I said, "Really? Free delivery?" I said, And she goes, "Well," and she added it up and she said, $125.
Wow.
These were all new. They weren't used.
Oh
Well,
my goodness.
yeah.
So that's amazing. So what
So
I'm Go ahead. So what I'm getting, like with you and to many others that are in this place of, pain or trauma, if they were to take that next step to have faith and trust that they will be provided whatever it is that they need to move forward from that.
Well, you're absolutely right that I didn't have faith and I didn't have trust. I was just doing it because my spiritual teacher was on my back because the truck came and rear-ended
Right.
and I got it, get your office together. And what was interesting is, I immediately had a few clients. My father had just died, so I had to go back and forth to LA to court. And anyway, no one, not either of his psych interns, ever used the office. Not only did they not boot me out, but they never used the office. I had this office that was pretty expensive and it was beautiful for $325, $350 a month. And I started to build my practice. And people started to refer people, their friends. And my first many clients were taxi drivers because it was before Lyft. So I would take a taxi to the airport and I talked to
Mm-hmm.
them about their issues and I gave them a
Mm-hmm.
card and they'd say, "Oh, well, give me the answer." I go, "No, no, no. You have to come and see me if you want the answers." So I had
Mm-hmm.
a whole cadre of taxi drivers who were my first clients who were lovely people.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was amazing. And one of them, who was very shy, ended up marrying the girl of his dreams. And he would write me and say how happy he was. And it was all because of his therapy. But as you're
Wow.
saying, he 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 took the next step. He
Mm,
ventured forward. He was uncomfortable and he did it anyway.
mm.
And that's
Yes.
so important. So, what's true is it's okay to be uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
and do it anyway. Do what you know is good for you anyway,
Mm-hmm.
because it will be
Mm,
better for you and it will build a sense of resilience and self
mm,
confidence, and that you're willing to open and be open to different ways of resolving issues and traumas,
mm.
you know?
Right. That's
Yeah.
true. So I don't think we really, moms give ourselves that because they get stuck in the three kids and school uh, and not giving themselves the grace to be able to see past that and to give herself some time to make some choices that would make her happy. Can you talk about perhaps with your clients how you drive them to that next step to making that choice? Because we were talking before we got on here, and you mentioned something about them, your clients making a choice, and you kind of asked them some questions about that.
Yes, well, first of all, if you go to somebody, a counselor or therapist or psychologist, find someone that you like and you
Hmm.
trust, and someone who's sincere.
Hmm.
Uh, okay, so when they suggest things to you, you believe that they're for your own good. It's hard as a mom to start thinking about your own good versus the child's good, but there's a balance there.
Hmm.
There's a balance there. And I tell moms, I say, if there's no mom, there's no kid. You know,
Yes.
you're the lifeblood of this new being. And so Khalil Gibran, in his book, The Prophet, has a chapter on children.
Hmm.
And he talks about your children are not your children, but life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And he says that the God, the universe, just as he loves the arrow, the child, he so loves the bow, the parent, that has to be in really good shape in order to
Hmm.
aim the arrow in the right direction.
Oh, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I do a number of different things with my clients. Sometimes I paradox them and say, so when did you decide to torture yourself?
Hmm.
And then we talk about maybe it would be okay to be kind. Maybe it would be okay to be vulnerable and not have to be or pretend to be so invulnerable. Maybe it's okay, mom, that you're very sensitive. It's,
Hmm.
you know, and it's okay to take care of the sensitive person. Don't we need
Hmm.
more sensitive people in the world?
Yes, yes, we do. I just did a, social media post on that, and it's my belief because of my experience of being a sensitive soul that our magic is needed.
Yes. Yes, the world is magical. They took all the
Hmm.
magic out of the world.
They did, and all the
Yeah.
sensitive souls. Yes, we've come to learn lessons and experiences, right? To strengthen our soul.
Oh, yes, yes,
right? But
yes,
it's that, coming to the trauma of what we've had to learn through the trauma. And then we get to that magic, like you
right.
said, that we can work through it, have the confidence after making that decision and going through it. You build resilience, like you
We
mentioned.
do. We do.
Mm-hmm.
We do.
Right?
I'll mention my daughter was, I think she was in junior high. I sent her to a private school, which I worked till midnight, to afford.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized she needed it. Just the kind of person she was she needed that smaller classroom and attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I made many visits to the principal to his chagrin. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but one day he told me, well, your daughter is way too sensitive, which
Mm-hmm.
triggered me. So I said to him, I said, huh, I said, you know what? I think she gets it from me. I'm way too sensitive too. I said, and I said, I didn't know this school was a school to make people insensitive. So you don't believe in
Oh.
art or music or poetry, right? You just want clods running around the earth. Isn't that right? I
Mm.
was so triggered
I'm
because I
so glad.
yeah, shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. I said, you shouldn't say a lot of things. You better watch yourself, you
Mm.
know?
And how old was she when you
I think she
talked?
was 12.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And that's a crucial time. Um, if they lose their sensitivity early teenage years because then they believe that they're weak.
Yes, yes. And so I tell mothers, you are not weak.
Hmm.
You are receiving some of the pain of the whole world because when you're a mom,
Mm.
you're connected. And to
Yeah.
understand, you're connected. Understand that your sensitivity is useful and helpful, and it can be very traumatizing to be rejected and to say you're not really okay. Who
Right.
you are is not okay. Now, that's ridiculous, you know?
I agree. I'm on the same page as you.
Yeah, yeah.
So, how do we tell our audience how people become traumatized? Like, what happens physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? What happens to them when they become
Well, what
traumatized?
happens is there's something that, first of all, we're a whole unit here. We're a whole universe. And something from the outside world um, suddenly comes into our world and it doesn't match. For instance, so many of my clients have been molested when they were 3 or 4 years old by
Mm-hmm.
a stranger or an uncle, and were never allowed to talk about it, never allowed
Mm-hmm.
to express what happened to their life. And they became unbalanced and not wanting to live, and some women have become drug addicts from it because the pain is so bad and no one would talk about it with them.
Mm-hmm.
We become traumatized when we hear we're full, our society now is full of radiation, microwaves, poisons in the air, poisons in the water, and our body becomes traumatized from those things where we have to take
Mm-hmm.
supplements and pure water, purify it, and filter it out. And we may not even know it. Um, Having someone scare us suddenly, coming up and saying it's Halloween, coming up behind us and saying boo, could traumatize us and could reignite maybe something that happened very early in life that caused a great deal of fear. So it's usually something that interferes with our whole system. not
Mm-hmm.
just our thinking and not just our feeling, but our physical system too, that
Mm-hmm.
changes our chemistry
Mm-hmm.
so that we aren't able to produce those good hormones,
Mm-hmm.
serotonin,
Mm-hmm.
norepinephrine, that we're not
Yes.
able, right? And
Right.
we get stuck.
Right. And that's such a beautiful point to make, that when they're in the trauma, they're not producing all those beautiful chemicals. And like you said, they're stuck. And I see that in my clients when the shifts that are happening, they're getting the happy chemicals, right?
Yes,
It's
yes,
being like, so there was that stuckness and it goes into that flow and they
yes.
receive the goodness of it. So thank you for bringing that up. So the audience can realize that when you're going through this inner healing, when you're working with someone that is holding space for you, whoever you choose resonates with you, that is the benefit that you receive from trauma healing, inner healing, mindset healing, whatever you want to utilize to walk you through it, that you will receive like the happy components of these chemicals.
It's true. It's really
Mm,
true. And we're so fortunate that we live in an era where we can, these, especially what is called the SSRIs, the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, that we take those with therapy. And they were designed for therapeutic regimen of about 18 months. And then for most people to wean off of it slowly. Some
mhm.
people are so traumatized and in pieces that they need those chemicals for a little while longer.
Yes.
Um,
Oh my gosh, so amazing.
it's amazing. So we are so fortunate to have them. I have
Hmm.
a client who was just had a hard time from the time she was 4
Hmm.
and was embarrassed because she had to take
Hmm.
chemicals. I said, well, if you had a heart problem, would you be embarrassed? Would you forget
Mm.
taking your heart medication?
Hmm.
Then you have a chemical issue. Just look at it like that, and you have something that will resolve the issue and make you happier. Isn't that a
Mm.
blessing? Let's have some gratitude.
And so you're saying if someone had to take the medication, not to feel ashamed that they have to take the medication, but that it's going to allow them to have what they need from it to help them feel better?
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm. So how would you say when they make the shift to how is there a gauge where then they can wean off of it or come off of it? How do they know when they don't need the medication anymore?
Well, uh, most people want to get off medication too soon, and don't do
Yes,
that.
that's why I ask. Hmm.
Don't do that. I think that now, with all the turmoil in the world, I would say at least 2 years, and then life,
Mm.
the universe will, the feedback. Am I able? Do I have energy? Am I happy when I go do something?
Oh,
Uh,
okay. I like that.
you know, the universe is giving us feedback all the time. Am I able to have a good conversation with a girlfriend where I'm neither jealous nor sad, and it fills me? Yeah, I feel happy about it. I feel, am
Mm.
I able to make friends? Am I able to have connections? All those things will say, maybe let's start very slowly. And people get off the medication way too fast. My vegetable man over at the market decided he was going to stop his medication. He ended up in the psych ward. I said, why did you
Oh,
do that? He said he didn't know. I
yes.
said, well, first of all, something that's going to give you that kind of difference in brain power needs to be treated with respect and
Mm.
gentleness, and your body needs to be treated with respect and
Mm.
gentleness. So, very, very slowly to adapt to it, very, very slowly to withdraw
Mm.
from it and see how it's going. See what you need. See if you can change your diet. I mean, things like fresh fruits and vegetables, uh, some kind of protein, uh, going out in the sun every day, doing
Mm.
aerobic
Yeah.
exercises, getting the heart rate up, maybe
Mm.
giving 5 hours a week of volunteer work. That helps
Yeah.
chemistry a lot. And so it's so important as markers of,
Hmm.
you
Markers,
know,
yes.
they're markers to say,
Mm.
okay, where am I? How am I doing? And also not to be ashamed of being traumatized. We've all been traumatized in our
Hmm.
life. Like
Right.
all of us,
Oh, yes.
you
Right.
know.
Yes.
Christine Shapiro, who created the EMDR,
Mhm.
says that trauma is in the eye of the beholder.
Oh, that's so interesting. And it's so true.
Yeah, so something,
Wow.
no, we may not think it's traumatic, but the person, it's very traumatic. So we can't judge any of
Mm.
that. I
Absolutely
have
not.
no, no. So have regard for if you feel traumatized, you're traumatized. All right. All right.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
reels of the reels.
Right. And then you can say, okay, what would be good for me to do?
Hmm.
And then what I just said, things like going outside, going to the park, sitting
Mm.
under a tree, breathing, doing your deep breathing, being
Mm.
grateful for the grass and the nature, growing things,
Mm.
volunteering, a lot of ASPCA, you can volunteer to pet the
Hmm.
cats, or hold the cats, or the hospitals, you can volunteer to hold children, the
Mm.
little babies. Um,
Hmm.
Doing something for another person automatically triggers a response in the brain to produce more serotonin. And that's
Mm.
the feel good drug. The saying, it's better to give than receive. It's not because it's a goody two shoes saying, it's because when you give, you are creating so much more serotonin than when you receive.
Oh, thank you for that explanation. I remember I had a best friend when I lived in California, and she told me that whenever she felt um, down or she felt like a little episode of depression, she didn't take any medication, but she just was aware of that. She says, I just go into service mode. Because she belonged to a church and she'll see, like, if anybody needs help or assistance, she had her little circle that she would do that for. And I thought, huh, that's interesting. And so it makes sense. She somehow intuitively knew that if she went into that, it took her out of that little, depressed mode.
It's true. And it's not just psychologically or mentally, it's actually physically. You're building
Oh.
physical, chemical support for your brain and your emotions. And, giving service is something we're supposed to be doing, all of us, a few hours a week,
Mm.
you know,
Hmm.
doing something for another.
I love that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so beautiful. So, is there anything else you want to leave of tips for the audience before we close?
Yes. I want to let every woman know that you are very special, that you are very blessed being a woman, that you have access to knowledge that men don't have on a very non-linear plane, that you, as the giver of life, the holder of life, have a responsibility to you to love you unconditionally, to start learning how to love unconditionally. And you're number one. Baby is number two.
Oh, thank you for that. That just almost made me have tears when you said that we have more knowledge, and it is our responsibility to bring that forth into the world.
Yes.
Oh, that is so amazing. I
Yeah.
love it. Thank you so much. If you want to reach out to Dr. Athans, you can, her website is, you can see her at www.catherineathansphd.com. She has a free meditation guide, Breakthrough What is Holding You Back and Feel Greater Joy and Love in Your Life, on her website. So you can get on her email list and then receive information from her, be in touch with her. And I know she holds workshops, and she is in, she teaches around the world. So you can follow her for that as well. I want to appreciate your presence. I want the audience to know that we are here, yes, on this other side, being guides, teachers, facilitators, to let you know that whatever you're here to do, you can reconnect with yourself beyond the trauma, and allowing for the trauma to be your guiding light, to receive your light and your wisdom to the other side. And that is how we help one another in the sisterhood that we're in here on planet Earth. So it's a blessing. Thank you so much. And we'll see you in the next one. Thank you for taking the time to listen to Neutralize the Mama Trauma podcast. If you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any new episodes. It would also mean the world to me if you're able to take a moment and rate and review my podcast on how it was helpful to you. Also, please connect with me on my social media platforms. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next episode.